spend time on that corner, try set me 100 up. Straight with that dog on my hip, shit, the coppers was running up. I look at these niggas and I can tell they are not one of us. I'm riding the back like a nigga that came right the front of the bus. They had it segregated, bulletproof caddy, I escalated. Stuck on my game like an escalator. When you shine like I shine, you get educated. Seen them ride with the fake and I hesitated. Wait, these niggas serious? Or maybe me really delirious? Just try to say it's a nigga, no period. I'm putting fear in these niggas. Ain't sparing these niggas. I cut at your head with a hit.
Welcome to Blue Blood TV, Season 6, Episode 4. My name is Hassan Pinto, and I'm here with Will Phelan, and we're going to talk Duke Carolina basketball. Hey, Will, I'm going to give you a recap of last week. UNC was fresh off of a 78-70 win over unranked Florida State in Saturday's ACC opener. UNC saw a significant jump in the AP poll on Monday, being ranked 9th. And last night, UNC played UConn, but they lost 87-76. On the other side of town, John Scheyer, the second Duke basketball squad to lose last week to unranked Arkansas, 80-75. On Wednesday night, they went to Georgia Tech and lost again, 72-68 on Saturday. And if they lose one more game before Christmas Day, they will be the first team in the last 41 years with 4 losses. Duke goes to Charlotte on Saturday. Will, how are you doing, man? It's been a big week in college basketball, and we've learned so much about these teams. What are your thoughts, Will?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I hope you are. Hope you had a good holiday, all that. It's been a minute since we've done this, so yeah, everything's good, man. It's been kind of an up and down week for us. I think this team looks good, though. I think we're exceeding expectations early on with the tough stretch of games. I mean, we went out and put up 100 against Tennessee before we ended up winning our first ACC game against Florida State, and then last night's game against UConn was a tough test. UConn's really good. There's a reason they won the national championship last year.
They're big. So Will, your heels are 7-2. I was hoping we were going to come on the pod and talk about an 8-1 season, and I thought you would be over the moon. But before we get into that UConn game, let's just talk about Hubert Davis, his team, his approach to recruiting, and bringing in a couple of 5-star recruits like Cadeau, like Ingram. But also, he's mixing them up with a bunch of 3 stars and 4 stars. Is his recruiting approach, you think, appropriate for the NIL era? And we're getting close to moving towards direct payment to athletes. Your thoughts?
I like the way that this team has been built, and I think that this is kind of what you're going to start seeing more of, with guys just able to bounce around as much as they want to with the transfer portal and everything like that. Ingram's a dog. Cormac Ryan, I love the energy he plays with. We need to get some more points out of him, some scoring. He needs to start knocking down some threes, but that'll come. And these guys like Jalen Washington's and Seth Trimble's of the world. And then we've got even Zayden High coming off the bench. He only plays about 6 minutes a game, but like these guys, these young kids are coming in for us, and they're giving us a good 10 minutes of 15 minutes of game time, and they're able to give us time to get guys like RJ rested, even if it's just for 5 minutes a game, whatever. RJ's scoring is up from last season. Baycott's right back to averaging a double-double again. So I like the way this team's built, man. I think Hubert's done a great job with these second half adjustments with the full court presses and everything too. So I like the way Hubert is coaching this team. I like the way he's built this team. And I think that this team is kind of what you're going to start seeing more of with the transfer portal and everything like that.
Okay, so Will, I watched the game last night, and and it was interesting to me because I was interested to see how UNC would handle UConn size. And in the last pod, I talked about, putting Elliot Cadeau and RJ on the pitch at the same time. I said, I think we're too small. I don't know if Cadeau can find his shot. And I know he frees up RJ. I think RJ last night got 27 points, which was a phenomenal feat. He was inside, he was outside. But UNC lost that game. And Cadeau with 27 minutes only put up 7 points. What's your take on the UNC loss to UConn?
I like. I mean, obviously,
You like losing, Will?
I don't like losing at all. I was just about to say that. I like winning. Everybody likes winning. I would have liked for us to have won last night as well. But UConn is a really good team, and I think you go out and you play the defending national champion early in the season. And Baycott in his presser even said we'll see him again this season. So I mean, it's this team is confident. And now we know what we need to do to compete with a team like that. They out rebounded us, which UNC historically prides themselves on being fast and offensive, being winning the offensive rebound matchup. And last night we just got out rebounded. They were bigger, they were faster than us. They hit some shots and they had an answer every time we tried to make a run. So these are learning opportunities, so to speak, where we know now what we need to do. I know Tennessee is not the same as UConn, but you go back a week to that Tennessee game and we dropped 100 on one of the best defensive teams in the country. So this team is doing things well. I do think that Elliot Cadeau, only averaging 7 points a game, you want to see somebody who's on the court for 27 minutes score more points. But at the same time, I mean, RJ's scoring's up. He's getting these guys open looks, and the shots just aren't falling right now. So if we can get the shots to fall, then I think we can justify having Cadeau out there, because he slashes to the basket and the kid can get it done. He's just I think he'll figure it out.
Well, here's my thoughts on Cadeau. He's too small. He's not athletic enough. He doesn't jump high enough. He's a good point guard that, I think he's kind of like a Roach over at Duke. He's a very solid point guard, but I don't think his athletics are good enough to get in the paint and get points. And if he can't get to the rim because he's not athletic enough, he's not going to have enough distance to get his jump shot off. And we saw that last night. So Cadeau, good player. Against the top 5-10 teams, I think he's going to struggle because he just doesn't have – he's just missing something. He's not RJ. He can't find his own shot. Will, for me last night, I'm going to tell you, I grew up in New York City, and when I grew up in the 80s, 90s, Carolina basketball was New York. Like New York basketball, loved Dean Smith, loved Carolina. And I felt like when Roy took over, he went away from UNC's presence outside of the southeastern United States, and he kind of gravitated toward Atlanta, Washington, D.C., and Florida, and said, hey, that's our recruiting territory. But last night, I saw a coach, Hubert Davis, who said, no, we're going to recruit in the Northeast. We're going to Madison Square Garden. We're going to have a presence. We're going to show Ed Coder, Derek Phelps, Kenny Smith, all those great point guards that UNC has pulled out of the Northeast. And we're going to make a presence, and we're going to tell those urban kids that UNC is a place for you. What are your thoughts on that?
I love it. I mean, Hubert played it. He played for the Knicks for what, 4 years?
Yeah, 4 years.
I love it, man. I think that Hubert has the right mentality and the right approach, and there's a ton of talent in that city. The problem with recruiting in that city is that UConn's back, and you still have Duke, and you've got Kentucky, and you've got all these other schools, the St. John's of the world. And so there's a little bit more competition for those players, but there are some dogs up there. And if you can go out and find one of them, find that needle in the haystack that wants to come down to Chapel Hill, then we'll take whatever we can get, man.
Well, 80s, UConn always had great basketball. St. John's in the 80s had Chris Mullin. They had some of they had their greatest basketball teams. Syracuse in the 80s, 90s had great basketball teams. So But Carolina was able to go in there, pull out point guards, because we had a presence. And what you found was during the Roy Williams era, Roy Williams conceded that territory. He conceded it to Duke. He said, "Oh, that's your territory." So then when the Kyrie Irving in New Jersey comes around and the next city basketball player, we don't get him because Roy conceded that territory. So I'm really proud of Hubert Davis for going back to New York, making a present, connecting the history to New York. But Will, I got another question for you. The Heels, highest ranked ACC team in the polls going into December. Did you think you would be here right now?
Not at all. Not at all. I'm not complaining, but I certainly didn't think the beginning of this season with the new roster. We only returned 4 guys from last year.
4 guys.
Yeah, I mean, no. Any Carolina fan who says they thought that we would be 9th in the country going into, I mean, what, Christmas time essentially? Absolutely not. I am stoked with the way this team has looked, though, and I think this team is built with how, I mean, obviously once you get into conference play, you're going to whittle it down to 6 or 7 guys. But we've got the depth there if people
do
do
think
get hurt.
Hubert's going to 6 or 7, or you think he's going to take his Uncle Roy's strategy and play everybody?
It might be 7 or 8. I think if you look at like from where we started the season and the lineups he was rolling out with Paxson Wojcik and guys like that, I think that he's already kind of whittling down the lineup essentially. I mean, while Wojcik's numbers are his minutes per game are down. I think he's only playing 13 minutes a game right now. But then you've got guys like Jalen Withers who have proven their worth. That kid's a monster. And so I think it'll end up being 7 or 8. But I mean, we've still got the depth pieces, the Zayden Highs, the Okonkwo's, way down deep, the other transfer. That if we do deal with injuries, because it is a long season, I think we'll be fine. And I think this team is I'm not gonna pull a Daryl and come out and guarantee a national championship like he did in our first episode. But hey, this team's built to make a run.
Okay. All right. Great. So do you think UNC has what it takes to win the ACC? That's the question.
Yes.
Okay, but what has to happen? Last night, let me just give you some stats. Ingram, 20 points. Yes. Baycott, 13 points, 34 minutes. I'm a little concerned about Baycott's points, but
boards
he got 13.
He
got 13 boards, 5 assists. Okay.
Okay.
But what he did on the boards was great. Okay. Yeah. But my problem is when I look down the boards, Ingram 4, RJ 4, Cadeau in 27 minutes 1, right? Yep. And I believe UConn was like plus 13, right? So
yeah, we got out rebounded for sure.
You got out rebounded, and it wasn't because Armando Baycott didn't rebound, it's because nobody else can, right? Yep. So my concerns is Elliot Cadeau, his points and his rebounds and assists are not matching up with his 27 minutes. In a big game, the previous game, he's been good, but I really think we got to get bigger, right? I think Cormac Ryan, 24 minutes, 6 points, not good enough. No assists, no rebounds, not good enough. He's got to give me 12 to 15 points. And then you guys got to find one more player that can give us some buckets to guarantee that. So that would get you to 4 scorers, and then you just need other guys to get 6 to 8 points, and you win a game like last night. Jalen Washington, 6 minutes, 0 points, 0 assists, 0 points. I'm just not sure Hubert got him rolling quick enough to develop. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, UConn again. That's just kind of they're tough, man. There's a reason. Again, they won the national championship last year. I just think that if you look at the ACC and the way it's set up, so preseason top 3 was Duke, Miami, and Carolina. Duke has no identity. They can't defend. They don't have a lockdown scorer. I wish Daryl was here today so that we could point out all the Duke issues.
Well, we're gonna talk. We're gonna talk about the Duke issues. You and I are gonna talk about him. Daryl's
Okay.
not gonna be here to protect himself.
So I really just think that I mean, if you look at that, Miami hasn't really looked as good as they did in their run last year. There's not a clear-cut front runner right now, and I do think that the issues that we're talking about, I mean, Cadeau is what, 17, 18 years old. He's supposed to be in high school right now. So I lost you.
He
There we
he
go.
looks like he should be a senior in high school.
He does, and he's small. He doesn't have the size. That'll come. I mean, look at Proctor from Duke. That kid's still a stud, and he had the same thing last year. And then towards the end of the season, he figured it out and made a huge run. I do think that, I mean, Cormac Ryan averages 10.5 a game. So last night, his 6 a game was below his average. And I do think if we figure out the scoring, we figure out the rebounding, I think that these issues, all it is just a matter of getting shots to fall, because we shot 50% in the first half against UConn. So the shots fell early that we couldn't buy a bucket late. I think I think we can win the ACC for sure.
I think you can win the ACC. I think Hubert needs to go deeper into his bench. I think like some of those warm-up games, he needs to figure out that 7th and 8th guy who he wants to develop. And those early games, I felt like he gave too many minutes to too many players and went too deep and didn't get a guy like Jalen Washington going, because Jalen is a guy you needed last night. You needed him to protect the rim. Armando needed help last night. And if he can get going and get you 6 to 8 points and defends that rim, you're in business, because RJ was cooking last night. You had enough, almost enough, if you could defend the ball, and then you could be even on rebounds. I mean, we were last night, I think it was plus 12 to UConn on the rebound. We can even that thing out. It's a different game. And I think that's where we went wrong. Let's switch over to Duke. Daryl's not here, but I've got some insights to what's going on. I told Daryl, I said, look, the issue with Duke is going to be this. Can John Scheyer control the pit bulls that he has in his kennel? Right? You bring in 5-star guys. You have 4 from last year that's still hanging around, and you bring in 4 more. And now you've got 8 to 9 pit bulls that all want to play in the NIL era. He can't control them because he's not Coach K. Now, Coach K could look at him and say, y'all better get in line, because if you don't, I'm going to go to that GM of that team that wants you, and you're not going to get drafted, right? Because you're uncontrollable, right? So Coach K had a lot of relationships. He commanded respect, and he could bring in 8 to 9 dogs and say, wait your turn. John Scheyer, he's got pit bulls and lions in his kennel, and he's just not a pit bull handler. And that's the problem. So my intel tells me that the guys are not playing together. They're playing for themselves, and they're playing for the NBA. That is the problem. And John Scheyer may not be the guy that can pull off what Coach K has pulled off over the years. What's your thoughts?
And so my thought to that is if we go back a couple of episodes, I think first or second episode we did this pod for the season, we talked about Hubert potentially not being the guy to handle the load for Carolina, so to speak, and the recruiting strategy and this and that and the other. And I think in the days of NIL, everybody would love to have as many 5-stars as you can possibly get, but these guys with AAU ball and the me ball and the hero ball or whatever you want to call it, like I just think that building a team and the issues that Carolina's had that we're talking about are shots falling and figuring out who's going to be our 8th or 9th guy. Where you look at the issues down 15-501 in Durham, and they've got too many cooks in the kitchen. They have nobody. Yeah, Filipowski's phenomenal, and Proctor's great, and Roach is the glue guy. But beyond that, you've got a bunch of 18-year-old 5-star divas who you can't keep happy because there's not enough. There's only 40 minutes in a basketball game, and you can't play 10 guys at the same time. So
Kyle Filipowski is soft.
he is soft.
And,
he is soft.
He's a soft. Proctor, soft. The problem with
Yep.
Duke is they're talented, but they are soft. And then you know who else is soft? You know who else is a softie? John Scheyer was a good basketball player, but he was soft. He was a soft player.
Soft.
He was soft. And
that's Duke, though. That's Duke.
No. Duke has not all with Corey Maggette.
Not always. With go back to Leitner and all that, but
Jason Williams, hard basketball player.
Yeah, you got to go back 20 years to find a hard Dookie, though. I can't believe
they started to bring them in. But here's the thing. I think that the guy on the end of the leash, his personality transfers to the handler, transfers his personality to his players. And I think that John Scheyer, for all the reasons Coach K liked him, and he's a nice guy, good guy, good with the recruits, great with the alumni. He has all these boxes he's checking. But what we're finding out is he has a soft box. He's not the right guy to handle these guys. And I think Bobby Hurley might be that guy.
I don't think he's that guy.
I don't think he's that guy. You know what I think is that guy? And I'm going to say it. Hot take. Bobby Hurley is that guy. And you saw what his brother brought to the table for UConn last night.
Yeah.
I think that Duke has a gold mine. Bobby Hurley on the sideline for Duke, because I am not sure John Scheyer is going to get through the season with the transfer portal. I think John Scheyer could be in trouble. Thoughts?
I think long-term Duke might be in trouble because these 5 stars want to come in and they want to play immediately. They've been told by everybody around them that they're the next coming and that they're the next Kyrie and they're the next Tatum and all these guys. And again, there's only 40 minutes in a basketball game. So in today's game, you've got to have a coach who can reel these kids in. And say what we want about Coach K. As a Carolina fan, I respect him, still hate him, whatever. But he could reel those guys in. And Scheyer just can't, man. He's not the guy. He's not the guy.
I don't think he's the guy. I didn't think Hubert was the guy. But, I
like the way Hubert is. I think that there's too many people that are way too impatient. And I think with the way Hubert tried to change the system from how Roy had set it up for the 18, 19 years Roy was in Chapel Hill. And you got to give a guy more than 2-3 years. And we're seeing it now. I mean, the recruiting strategy is working, the system, his second half adjustments against Florida State that he made with the full court press and going with the 3-point guards, because Florida State doesn't actually have a point guard, so we could slide guys up the court and then slide them under, and he played small ball. You're seeing now what Hubert can do. I get Scheyer is only in his second year, but right now with the way Duke looks, it's just like they're what are they doing? They just look lost out there. They have
a kennel full of Rottweilers that want to play.
Yep.
And they want to go to the league. They want to make real money. That NIL money is nothing compared to the NBA.
Yeah.
But they have a handler that simply can't handle them. And, I made fun of Hubert early on. I said, Carolina's not getting those 4- and 5-star recruits because Hubert doesn't want them. He can't handle them. But perhaps Hubert is recruiting for his for what he can handle. So he has an Ingram. He's a dog. Great
Ingram's
player.
a dog.
Dog. He has Armando. Dog. RJ. Dog. But he has a few collies in his and he has a few collies that are good. They're nice.
Cormac plays with that chip on his shoulder too, man.
But maybe Hubert is constructing a roster that he can manage. And maybe we're underestimating Hubert's understanding of what players need, right? So players want to play, players want to develop, right? And maybe he's putting an interesting mix of players together that he can get playing right off the start, like Cadeau, getting minutes, 27 minutes. I don't think he deserves them. I don't think he's good enough, but he's a good basketball player that will be the point guard for Carolina after RJ, right? But maybe he's pulling together a roster where those 4 and 5 star guys that have NBA potential, he can get them the minutes that he needs. And then he can take a guy like Jalen Washington and develop him over time and bring him along when he needs him. And maybe Hubert has a more emotional intelligence than I gave him credit for. You always gave him credit. And perhaps Scheyer isn't the guy to lead a Coach K style basketball team.
Yeah, and it honestly, so part of me loves, as a Carolina fan and Tar Heel through and through, I love seeing the struggles over in Durham. I love it. But I want them to at least figure something out, because, and I have no doubt in my mind they probably will. But it does make the rivalry that much better when both teams are good. And if we're sitting here talking about the struggles and this and that and the other, honestly, if let's go in and hope they struggle all season, and he is sorry. And we beat him twice so that Scheyer can have his third year where he figures it out maybe, or something. But I love seeing him struggle, and it does make the rivalry better when both teams are good, though.
I give it to you. The rivalry is the most important aspect of this. And for me, I wanted to see Jerry Stackhouse versus Bobby Hurley, right? Because I don't want the coaches to be too nice. I don't want them to say all the right things. I don't want them to like each other, right? And I want a guy that doesn't say, like, for me, John Scheyer, he looks great. He speaks great. He has his glasses. He seems like a very nice guy. But for the rivalry, I don't know if that's what the rivalry needs. We need, like, New York needs that New Jersey guy, right? That's not going to say the right thing. And Carolina needs that rural guy from Kinston, North Carolina, that can talk to North Carolina, and fight like North Carolina. And I don't think that we have a Northern Virginia guy, and I don't know where Sheyer's from, but they're very nice guys. And I just think the rivalry needs a little more.
I think for Duke too, to touch on what you just said, is like, everybody hates Duke. I mean, they made a 30 for 30 about it. Everybody hates Duke, and I mean, that's just a fact.
That's respect, though. That's
for sure,
that's respect.
And so Duke has that edge. Everybody hates you. Have an asshole as your coach. You don't need to have some nice guy. Like, play the villain role. You've been good at it for this long. Just know who you are and be who you are. And I agree with you. Sheyer's too nice, and he can't contain all of these egos in the 5 stars. It's not happening right now.
It's not happening. And, like, going back to Hubert, I like Hubert. I like what he's doing. He might be onto something in the way he's recruiting, in terms of bringing in a couple of 4 or 5 stars, mixing them in with 3 and 4 stars. and building a roster that he can keep around, players that he can develop. And I'm not sure that Hubert won't be successful with that, but I would like that. I would. Everybody says, well, he hasn't won over at Vanderbilt, Jerry Stackhouse, but I don't know if anybody can win over at Vanderbilt.
No,
nobody.
Absolutely.
I don't know if anybody can get the right players at Vanderbilt.
Wasn't Hurley up at Northwestern?
Is he at Northwestern now?
I thought he was at one point in time.
No,
one of those two guys was at Northwestern.
I think he was
right?
at. Yeah. That's the other coach's son, but Jerry's at Vanderbilt. He's at Vanderbilt.
Okay.
But I just thought the idea of having a guy born and bred in North Carolina that spurned Duke, went to Carolina, was the #1 draft pick his year in 1996. Yeah. As your coach, a guy that had amazing dunks inside Cameron, okay?
Yeah.
As your coach, for the rivalry, going up against a guy like Bobby Hurley, I just think, like, you know, in college basketball, you are marketing brands and coaches, right? Because the players switch out. And to have Bobby Hurley versus Jerry Stackhouse could have been amazing. But Hubert, I'm not underestimating what Hubert's doing, what Hubert brings to the program, his likability factor. But I think those likability factors were the factors that got both of them their jobs.
Prepare for Duke and North Carolina to face off like never before. Blue Blood Rivalry 5K! 5K! Sign up one, sign up all. Students, families, alumni, locals, non-locals, everyone! And you don't even need to be from UNC or Duke, because we have a Party Crasher division. Party Crasher! Come state, Wake, UVA, anyone, and join the fun. Crash their party! But the real battle is between the Blue Devils and the Tar Heels. Before it's settled on the court, it'll be settled on the race course. But there's more. There will be a special basketball dribble division where each participant will travel the race course dribbling a basketball. Dribbling a basketball? Hell yeah! That's cool! So sign up now! Attention all racers, prepare for the event of a lifetime. The race course will most certainly decide a champion school.
Carolina fans, download Duke Carolina, the Blue Blood Rivalry film on iTunes or Apple TV or wherever you get your VOD downloads.
Hey, Quinn, Quinn, you know you my guy, right? I'm always putting for you. Tonight, when you step on the court, I step on the court too. And we in it.
Only 2 games that night. It's the North Carolina game at Duke and the Duke game that's at North Carolina.
When we wake up on game day, there's a knot in my stomach. We've been up since 6 a.m. this morning watching recorded Duke Carolina games.
I watched the Rivers shot
about 15 times.
Yeah.
Rivers on his own. Yes, at the buzzer.
We're here for the Duke game.
And it is 10 hours and 9 minutes until game time.
The Blue Devils win 85-84.
Nothing better than North Carolina and Duke. It is the best rivalry in all of college basketball. Hall of Fame coaches, great players, and usually so much at stake.
And that's it. Carolina's won it.
The fans have as much to do with the rivalry being great as the players and the coaches.
It's 5 hours before game time.
Well, there's no question that the rivalry is there every day in our community.
Can you imagine what it would be like around here if people didn't have it? It would be terrifying.
We are 30 minutes away from tip-off.
It's one of the most exciting events you can be a part of, and I still say it's not the biggest rivalry in college basketball. It's the biggest rivalry in all of sport, bar none.
It's game time!
Coaching change. I do think that Hubert was always going to be the guy, kind of looking back and the way it was all handled and everything. I don't think that there was ever any doubt that the job wasn't Hubert's. But I was very much in the Jerry Stackhouse camp as well. I thought that he would have look at the level of talent that's come out of Kinston, and to be able to have the NBA pedigree, and again, nobody can win at Vanderbilt. It's where I was going with the Northwestern thing is it's just like Northwestern. Like the guy, I forget who the Duke guy was that was up there. Those are impossible schools to be good at. The academic standards versus the NIL versus, I mean, you're in Nashville. You're not even the biggest school in your state and
It's
area.
Chris Collins. Chris Collins.
That was it. Yeah.
Chris Collins actually lived in my neighborhood when he was an assistant coach for Duke.
Did he really?
Yeah. So, our kids early on played basketball together. So I used to talk to Chris Collins all the time.
Those are just impossible schools to
an
be good
amazing
at.
guy. But you can't win at Northwestern. So my point in that, in saying that, is we can't look at it. If Hubert Davis can sit as the number 2 to Roy, and then get one of the, if not the best basketball job in the country, that's not comparing apples to apples. We don't know what Hubert Davis would do at Vanderbilt. We don't know what his record would look like at Northwestern. Right. But what we do know is personality types. I know that Bobby Hurley is a better player than Dan Hurley. Bobby played at Duke. He is one of the guys that is one of the reasons we're even talking about Duke basketball right now. Dan Hurley played at Seton Hall. He wasn't Bobby Hurley.
Okay.
But he's a damn good coach. He's a damn good recruiter. He has a pedigree from his father, who was a damn good coach, a damn good recruiter. And similarly, I just felt like the next North Carolina coach should come from North Carolina.
Yeah.
And we should make sure that Duke could never beat us out for another recruit in the South. In the state of North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, wherever we needed to go, whether it was urban or rural in the South, we would never get beat out for those recruits because they would be sitting down with somebody who's from the South, who understood the South, that was raised in the South, and they could talk to any player that's from the South and have that connection. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I very much was hoping it would have been Stack. I mean, I'm 36 and I grew up watching Stackhouse play for a long career in the NBA, and he was fun as hell to watch. And I think that a guy who's from North Carolina, who's done it, who could go into a living room in Kinston or in Rock Hill or anywhere in South Carolina, North Carolina that you want to go to, and
or Virginia.
He could even go into Virginia, but he could also go into New York and in DC and all these metro areas that we keep talking about, where you need to win the recruiting battle against a school like Duke, Kentucky, the other blue bloods. And I did think that he could do it. It'll be interesting to see, because I mean, obviously, Baycott and RJ were Roy guys. They weren't Hubert guys, but I think Hubert, large in part, had a large part in recruiting them and bringing them to Carolina. So it'll be interesting to see if he can go into New York and all these other places and win. But I agree with you, man. Like I think that Stack would have been fun. I think we're just kind of stuck with what we've got now, and Hubert, for all intents and purposes, has done a pretty good job, man.
He's a good coach. I think Hubert's a good coach. I think Hubert's putting together a great basketball team.
Yep.
I think Hubert, it's still December.
Yeah.
I think Hubert understands that it doesn't matter what we're doing right now. It matters what we're doing in March, right? So, and then I think Hubert understands that. So, and I think, to credit Hubert, he may not bring in 4 or 5-star recruits ever, but he's going to bring in 1 or 2. And he's going to mix them in with 3 and a 4. He's going to get a guy like a Jalen Washington that he gets 4 years to develop, right? And he might be right. I'm just telling you that I wanted Stackhouse just because of what he means to North Carolina, but I'm not at the same time underestimating what Hubert is doing right now and what he's going to do. Back to John Scheyer.
Okay.
I mean, Duke is battling a situation where they got to maintain a brand. Brands are erode very quickly.
Yeah.
The train of 5-star recruits could end this year because of the situation, because players talk. If they don't right that ship, those guys that are sitting on the bench waiting to play will go play somewhere else. And the guys that are on the pitch, on the hardwood, will go to the NBA.
Yep.
What do you think is going to happen over there?
I think Duke is at a crossroads right now. And I know it's early in this whole thing for these guys, but it felt like with Coach K, a lot of times he could just, I mean, with the USA basketball, the NBA background, whatever, he could just go in and say, hey, look, Duke, USA basketball, NBA, this, that, and the other, and just things would magically happen. Coach K was that good of a head coach. Things would just happen for him. Scheyer isn't that good of a coach, and he can't contain these people, and players do talk. And I mean, part of me really wants to see him just fail miserably. Just being a Carolina fan and listening to last year, all the shit that I had to hear from all the Duke fans about the 2 wins and everything. But at the same time, for the rivalry's sake, like it's one of those where I just think that it's players talk, and then with the way recruiting is now with these 5-stars, these 5-stars can just go to the G League too. So not only are you fighting other coaches in schools for these players, you're also fighting a paycheck in the G League.
Yeah, and I agree. I totally agree.
It's one of those where if they don't right the ship and right it fairly quickly, because I mean, you look at, not to bring up football because football and basketball aren't the same, but if you look at how many players entered the transfer portal from the Heels, and we're 2 weeks removed from the season. I mean, it's one of those where it happens fairly quickly now, and if they don't figure something out, I don't know what the solution to the problem is, but if they don't figure it out, it's not going to happen for them.
So I don't think they're there right now, but I think they've got Coach K may have to show up to practice. Coach K may have to put his muscle down on those kids, and the brand is the most important thing, and the rivalry is the most important thing. And for me, where I sit, for the rivalry to be meaningful, Duke has to be great, not good. They have to be great. For the rivalry to be meaningful nationwide, and this to be the best rivalry in the country, Carolina has to be great, right? We have to be fighting for national championships. We got to be fighting for the Duke-Carolina rivalry. And Nina, you're on the clock. She's on the clock right now. She's got to figure out what she's going to do. I don't think the time is right now, because I think it's December. But if you get deep into January and there's still a problem, there's a communication issue. The players aren't playing together. The players are looking out for themselves. They're arguing amongst each other. Then you're going to need to make a coaching change in the midseason, because the brand is very important. And Carolina and the rivalry is uber important. But Will, I enjoyed rocking with you. I'm sorry Daryl couldn't be here today, but Daryl will be back next week on next week's show. And Will, it's been amazing. A great week for Carolina. Kudos to you.
For sure, man.
And Duke, I know you're happy because Duke is they're experiencing some of the things that we've experienced with a coaching change, right? It's not a straight line to success. There's ups, there's downs. They're going to have to make decisions on whether they stick with John Scheyer, they let him like get through it, or, you know, in my opinion, if I was over there, I think they should go over to Arizona State and have a conversation with the one and only Bobby Hurley, because Bobby Hurley would inject just energy into the program, and he wouldn't say all the right things. So that said, this has been episode 4, season 6. Will, I love rocking with you, man.
Absolutely, man. Been a pleasure.
Okay. And as we say, we out, Will. Are we out?
We out.
Blue Blood TV Podcast is available on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts. Remember, guys, these shows grow when you share them. So we have a great show here. Share them with all your friends. Make them aware of the Blue Blood TV Podcast.
I was spend time on that corner, try to set me 100 up. Straight with that goggle, my hip shit, the coppers was running up. I look at these niggas and I can tell they are not one of us. I'm riding the bed like a nigga that can't